This is the Marketing Agency Power Hour, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each week, we'll power through discussions on business challenges, success stories, and game-changing strategies. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Let's get started. So I'm pumped to be talking to today's guest. He's a serial entrepreneur, a marketing leader and a thought leader, author, speaker, and podcaster. He's the author of a book called Marketing Automation Unleashed, and he's the host of not one, but two podcasts, The Hardcore Marketing Show and Creating the Greatest Show. He previously founded and ran Cheshire Impact, a marketing automation consulting agency, where he was Salesforce's #1 partner, and he exited that firm after 10 years. And now he has a new agency where he is the founder and chief evangelist at Ringmaster. Casey Cheshire, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So, this show is all about the things that marketing agencies are doing to drive success in their businesses. So let's just dive right in. What's the single most powerful strategy for success in your marketing agency now?
I got this wrong time and time again, and I got to tell you, I have seen the light. Put the app down and actually talk to your customer.
And so what does that mean? And what are the things you need to do to implement that strategy?
You know what? Like spending decades doing marketing automation and doing the things that we do for our clients, getting all the cool, sexy apps, putting them in between us to try to help make it look like we're more places than we are. I just got so behind all these apps to the point where I forgot even what the problem was, or maybe I knew what the problem was 8 years ago, but customers change and the challenges their companies are facing change. And I wasn't staying up with it. I wasn't staying up with them, and especially as my agency grew. I think a lot of founders can probably relate to this. As my agency grew, there became people for everything. There was a sales team, sales managers. There were operational folks and folks who delivered the services and managers of those people. And so you're kind of supposed to keep your hands out of the cookie jar, right? As a founder, as an owner, and maybe they don't need you for all the strategy anymore. So, hey, that's great. The problem was I'm still trying to set vision, and I'd really become disconnected. I like to call it disconnected marketing. I got disconnected from my customer base, and so when I was asked for vision, I would be on these EOS quarterly meetings, and sometimes I deferred to my team, who sometimes came up with good stuff and sometimes didn't. And I just wasn't setting vision and direction for my company because I didn't really know what the problems were these days.
Yeah, I can see definitely how that happens. And so one of the challenges I've had, it sounds good, talk to your customers, get feedback and, adapt your offering to the marketplace, right? But one of the challenges I've had at points in my career is how do we get real forthright, honest feedback from customers? Because they like to be polite. If they fire you, they blame it on their budget. It's hard to get real feedback or like a real two-way dialogue sometimes. So how do you go about that challenge?
Yeah, I think truth happens earlier in the relationships and then also with more frequency. I think when we leave it to, wow, we lost this client, how do we lose them? Hey, can't hurt to ask, right? And sometimes when you've lost them, then they'll just tell you because they already know they've wrecked the relationship or you maybe earned that, right? So they'll tell you, but really it's like, how do I find out sooner? So I found more frequent conversations, and then also just get way out in front of it. So having those conversations earlier. And I realized, yeah, I know everyone says it, right? That's why I ignored it too. Everyone says, oh, like talk to your customer or learn from your customer. And, a slippery slope. And I was guilty of this too, right? I'm not trying to say I did this right the whole time. I did this wrong the whole time. They say, oh, send surveys out. And you get these fancy survey tools. And there were some fancy ones, not SurveyMonkey, but all the ones that came after that. All these real cool, fancy tools. But I remember it was like a week or two ago, I got this survey from a product I had purchased, a service that I had purchased. And I was actually excited about it. I enjoyed it. And then the survey said, please share the reason that led to you the challenge that led to you signing up with the service. And there was 4 options, none of which were the thing that drove me to get their service in the first place. And there was no other option that said, maybe we don't know, fill in the blank. None of that. So by default, this survey was wrong before it even left the mailbox, right? Like before it even left the send button, the data they were going to get back, it's not even bad data in, bad data out. Like it was broken. And so this is the same. Oh, send a tool out? No. 5 minutes. One time I had coffee with a customer, and in 5 minutes, I actually clearly understood their challenge. They were doing this weird B to B to C pass through with their customer, and it didn't make sense on paper, but when they explained it over a little Starbucks, right, like $3 cup of coffee, it made perfect sense, and I knew how to really help them out. So I've been obsessed with what are the different things we can do, the ways we can put the app down and get rid of disconnected marketing and just start reconnecting with people and asking them those questions that we need to ask them.
So you can send them a survey, you can sit down and have coffee with them, right? What are some of the other ways that you're having success or seeing clients have success?
Number 1, podcast, right? Podcast. And in podcast, just think of a recorded conversation. Like we're on a podcast now. We've both got these fancy looking microphones because we sound good, because we want it to sound like professional. But it can be as dirty. A good friend of ours wrote a book, Start Dirty, Start Ugly, right? Just start. And so the idea of it's a recorded conversation. And I know if you've ever had a conversation with someone, you thought, man, that was good. It's too bad we didn't record that. Well, this helps you record that. But the other reason is, I think sometimes in marketing, and hey, even agency founder owners, we can get a little shy. If we weren't, we'd be in sales. We'd have a sales agency instead. But we can get a little we prefer our tech and our creativity, and maybe not the phone call. And so we're like, how do we get on the phone with someone? And I think historically we thought, oh, I know, I'll ask them to do a case study for me. But it feels like such a take, right? Hey, customer, advocate, let me take your time up here next Thursday and just ask you a bunch of questions that helps me out. And maybe I'll send you a hoodie, right? Or if anything, but let me take your time. It just, it always felt a little bit like we were just, I don't know. And you know what, to be honest, customers often don't mind if they're really happy. They'll be happy to share some of these experiences, but it just always felt weird as a marketer to reach out. So the solution to this disconnected marketing is a podcast. And the idea is, instead of making it about you, you make the podcast about your customer. You make it about them. And then the invite is like a no-brainer. Now they're happy to get, oh, you want to honor me? Yeah, I want to get you on a pod and learn about you. And like, you're obviously a leader in your field, and I want to interview you and put the spotlight on you. And so now we're starting this whole thing off with a give, not a take. We're saying, I want to give some of my time and attention, even the platform I've created, to put you out there, right? And so it's like, even this conversation, I am so thankful to be on a podcast with you. It starts that relationship off great. Like, wow, like, thank you. And I'm grateful. And this it will color the rest of the relationship of like, oh yeah, Cal, he's a good guy. He gave me some time, attention. He actually wanted to know what I wanted to answer on this question. So this is the solution, is this idea of interviewing your customer just with a little bit more formality than a case study or just like a coffee, a little more formality to make it a little bit more in their interest to come and answer some questions.
Is there even a close number 2 in your mind these days?
There is. So yeah, it's a great question, right? Like, is Casey just like he's a hammer and everything's a nail and everything needs a podcast? I do think everything needs a podcast, but I will say there are some other tools in the handbag. So this is what I've come up with. It's this idea of, instead of go to market, and I know this is heresy. I know all the other marketing owners listening some are gonna scourge me, but other ones may buy into this. And by all means, join me on this adventure. I call it connect to market. Not go to market. Go is very transactional. Connect to market is like, I have an objective here. I want to connect with that person. So there's 3 things that really come up to mind for me. They are podcasting, right? Or recorded conversation, community, specifically like a roundtable community, a roundtable where we're like breaking bread, maybe, or virtually. We're just sharing what works and what doesn't work and what's hard. And we're like we're really connecting that way, and you can learn all the problems and challenges. And then finally, partnerships. Partnerships, it's a little different, right? But it's a roundabout way of getting customers, but man, can that work well? And it's all about the relationship with those partners. So yeah, those are different areas I obsess over.
So when those connections are driving success for your agency, what does that really mean for you? Like, how do you measure or define success for your agency?
That's a really good question. I think, keep asking questions like those, and we're going to need to work together, because like that's the thing. Like, how do you measure success? Right. And I think at a very tactical level, right? I'm in grind and growth mode right now. So a very tactical level, it's like adding new customers this month, this quarter, this year, like make sure we are adding new and then also keeping what we have. So success, we set these goals at the beginning of the year, and so we've rolled them out across quarters and months. We have to sell a certain number each month. We have to keep a certain number each quarter. And that is just, keep it simple. It's that. And then there's a third one actually that we've started measuring now, which is average spend per customer per month. And one of the things that we realize is we really have two levers. We have how much work a particular person can do and how much we charge for that work. It's like, and the people are busy. So it's either give them more, make them more busy, but we care. It's part of caring is part of our culture. So we're not here to burn through people, right? So that's not usually the lever that's going to happen here. Or maybe make them more efficient. But the other lever is how can we do more value for our customers and then raise that monthly rate up. So the three metrics really is like new customers, keep the customers, and then grow the customers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because there's really only a few levers you can pull there, right? You can
Yeah.
add more clients, more customers to grow revenue, can improve and raise pricing by delivering more value, like you just said. You can drive your utilization of your staff higher, but there's a limit to that before they burn out, right? And so,
Right.
it's really, growing through customers, pricing well, and having a reasonable staffing model, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've definitely pushed on the pricing to the point where it properly reflects the value. And now I just need to add value, right? So I've pushed to make sure that we're capturing, the exchange for what we currently do. And now it's like, okay, what are the additional services that we can add on that blend well into what we currently offer? There aren't just like totally separate businesses, and we're trying to keep track of that. There are a few things that we can add on that really don't, like we launch pods and businesses and help with partnerships. There are things that can be layered on top of that, and we're trying to avoid the noise from the signal and try not to add services that aren't grounded in our core offering.
So it sounds like you're trying to have clients for a very long time, right? In your model, maybe not forever, but more than just, a 3 or 6 month project, right?
Yeah. Well, we actually we sign people up for a year, right? So year-long agreements, and you really need that, right? But also the metrics work the best that way for us and the clients. So it works well. Only have a little pushback sometimes, but like that's really the sweet spot. But then, yeah, and we realize we have to earn every season. We call like each contract a season. We have to earn each season, and make sure we blend in like quarterly processes with that, and quarterly planning meetings, and end of season and new season planning meetings, because we have to like earn that next one. But yeah, we want lifetime customers.
So you've got a lot going on. It all sounds good, and I know you're growing the agency. Everybody's got challenges, though. What are some of the challenges or the biggest challenge you're seeing right now that could be a hurdle to clear and on your road to more success?
We're always advising our clients to niche down, right? I love the fact that you do bookkeeping, accounting, financial strategy for marketing agencies. I love that. That's so niche. That's exactly what we're always telling our clients. And then for me, I look and I go, everyone needs to connect with their customer, but everyone is not a niche, right? So for me, it's been really trying to zero in on things. And sometimes that means not being elastic with my pricing. Like, no, this is what it is, and let's not negotiate. And if you can't afford it, maybe you're just too small, right? But also, can I pick an industry? Can I even pick SaaS versus professional services? We've seen it work in both situations. But man, it would be so much better if I said, hey, this is, we only work with cybersecurity SaaS companies. Damn, that'd be a great niche.
How do you go about deciding like what's a great niche for you? How do you do that assessment?
Well, clearly not very well just yet, right? Because the world is my oyster. I think when I try to, work through this problem, it's just going back to like who gets the most value, so that it's like a no-brainer for them to sign up, but also 100 days in, or at the end of a season, what was their value, and did we have to jump through a bunch of hoops to create value, or did it just happen because it's the best fit? So that's what I'm trying to focus on.
Hmm. It
um,
sounds like that could be a challenge that you could, you know, might benefit from getting some experience from the audience who've gone through
yes,
this and successfully ixed down their agency, right?
100%. I would love the advice, even if it's, I won't say cruel and bitter, but if you have some direct words for me, I would love the thoughts. If anyone's gone through this experience and has done the hard thing.
Okay, listeners, you've heard the challenge. If you've gone through the same thing, reach out to Casey and share your experience and your wisdom.
Yeah, please.
So I'm a finance guy, so I got to ask you at least one finance or accounting question while we're chatting here. What's the take on the finance side of your business? How do you approach and manage that?
I love that question. And the reason I love it is because in my last company, I didn't love it and I avoided it. That same kind of, everyone listening probably can, or many of us can relate to, if you love doing something, you'll do it all day. But if you don't like doing something, you'll find good ways to distract yourself. You don't have to do it. And for me, that was the finances. For me, that was a P&L. And it, little to know, is the most important thing I should be looking at, or one of them. And I would just find a way not to look at it. And it wasn't until I hired coaches and other people that forced me to look at it. They realized, oh, we have some things we have to fix in here, like, right? So I learned the hard way, like not to like I need to pay attention to it. Like I don't need to be a financial wizard. That's what you're for, right? But I do need to be responsible and keep looking at it on a recurring basis. And it's often the key to unlocking a lot of decisions. And also there's a little bit less anxiety if you're staying up with that, as opposed to wondering what it is. So my take is I gotta look at it on a regular basis. I've set up these meetings. I've got these great once a month meetup with my leadership team, and we're just looking at the numbers. In fact, just even today, we went over some, and it was great. It was great to go over it and think about what can we do next. Almost thinking past, present, and future. So my take on finances now is I'm still a caveman, but I'm at least gonna pay attention to the smoke signals. I'm gonna stare into the tea leaves. I'm gonna stare into the fire and pay attention and invest in accounting, invest in financial expertise and wizards who don't even need to like get high on the smoke from the fire and know what's going on, right? Like, oh, hey, I've seen this time and time again. Watch out for this. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a gradual progression, right? You start by actually getting bookkeeping and accounting done well each month, and then you get financial statements to look at, your P&L and L and your balance sheet. So that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's hard to really know what to make of those financial statements. And then you take the next step and you put together, set some financial metrics targets and get them into a scorecard
Yeah.
and start to really understand what's operationally driving the result in the financial statements, right?
It's the models. I
Yeah.
love a good model because it's almost like there's so much uncertainty in what we do that if I can just scrape together understanding of, even an idea of how much revenue can one person, manage, and then what does it look like hiring 10 people like that, and what is the staffing like, and can I do that this year, and at what point can we hire the next person? I think one of my biggest challenges too around that is just understanding, like, when can we hire the next person? And sometimes it's like when it feels like it's time to hire the next person. And I don't want to operate off that. I want to operate off, okay, we're getting to this point. We know it takes a certain amount of time to scale up the next person. Let's go ahead and make the move and bring them in, and not just, oh, it feels like we're busy. It feels like our team doesn't have any room, so let's add someone. It's like let's be more intentional about it.
My favorite metric that helps with the staffing and the hiring decision is the labor value multiple metric, where you can do your whole big model and figure out revenue per employee and gross profit per employee and what do you need to do. Um, but ultimately, it kind of can get distilled down. You say, you know what, for every dollar I spend on payroll, I need to have $2.50 of revenue. So I've got a 2.5 labor value multiple in my agency, right? And then you say, okay, as long as we can hire whoever we want, as long as we hit that 2.5 labor value multiple. So if we get up to like 2.8, 2.9, people are probably starting to burn out a little bit. But if we get down to, 2.1, 2.2, we're probably not profitable anymore, right? And so that's a simple metric we like to, implement with clients to help them answer those questions about when they can hire.
Can I turn the table on you? I know it's your podcast. Is 3? I've always heard like 3 is a good number for that to shoot for, to plan for.
3 is a great number in most service industry businesses. If you can get to 3, that's awesome. 2 seems to be generally the floor. So somewhere between 2 and 3 tends to work out pretty well. It varies a little bit by business model, and if you're reselling, third-party products and generating some gross profit from resale, not just your own professional services. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It seems like when 3 gives us a fighting chance. And one of the things I was looking at, I think when I was talking about raising our average, spend per customer, was when we did the math on the 3, there wasn't really any room for our team to grow. But if I could increase that monthly amount by even just an extra 1,000 a month, like it opened up the world to, raises for the team and trips and investment in this and a different space. Like we could invest more, but when that number is shorter, there's a lot less you can do. And you almost feel like you're penny pinching at the lower multiple.
Yeah, I mean, driving profitability has a lot of benefits that may not be fully appreciated by everybody until you get to the point you have a little extra cash and can spend on things like you mentioned that
Yeah.
benefit the team.
I had there was a presentation the other day where someone was talking about how to really take care of your team, and one of the things was, and he said, "Hey, shout out to Joey. I think it's Joey Coleman. He was like, hey, make sure you talk about how your company makes, spends, and loses money." And I realized, wow, we don't really talk about that, but we take it for granted that everyone just knows that. No, they don't know that. Like, why would they? They haven't been in that experience. So we did that just even at cursory level at my team last week. And I think it was helpful just to go over like, hey, for our company, it's people, you guys. But guess what? There's how much money you're making, but also you lose some to taxes. But guess what? There's this whole other layer of taxes that we pay for you that you don't even see and no one sees. So just kind of how they say open the kimono, but just like sharing more about the facts. I used to think that was like more private, but hey, let's just share like, hey, this is this. Hey, that office, the AC, the electricity, we pay for all that, like you do at your apartment, So just kind of shared more of that today, last week.
Yeah, it can be daunting to share a lot of financial information.
Yeah.
I think the employees are probably, making their own assumptions if you don't share anyway, they probably all assume you're making more money than you actually are. And, right. So they
100%.
have a story in their head, and probably replacing that with actual data is probably better.
Yeah. Little did you know, last year I was able to apply for like financial aid and scholarships for my kids because I wasn't the highest paid I was the lowest paid person in the company. But that's what we do. We work hard to try to make something, make it and grow it. So
Absolutely. So we've been talking a lot about what's going on, today, but
yeah,
I can tell you're very forward looking. So what's exciting to you about the future?
man. How does everyone not just say AI at this part? Right? The idea, first of all, getting help on math homework, middle school math homework, that's probably worth its weight in gold, but they're underpriced in that regard. But at the same time, being able to take data, throw it in there, get some initial thoughts and questions that you can maybe ask yourself, it just opens things up. But I think for me, even bringing it back full circle, the idea of even talking to your customer is that it is so much easier to make noise now. And, I have experimented with AI writing your comments on LinkedIn. Oh my gosh, he said it out loud. Yeah. And guess what? There are telltale signs and I see them and I go, oh, but at some point, is LinkedIn just going to be us all posting stuff from AI and the comments are all AI? And then who's actually anything there? I see it getting more and more noisy, right? So what I'm excited about with the future is, well, everything gets more noisy. There's going to be certain things that break through the noise. And it's that like one-to-one thing. The thing we're doing now, yes, I know they'll be able to fake podcasts, but it's not about the content. It's about the conversation, right? So you can't fake this. We're spending some time together. You're actually, you can't zone out on a podcast, right? Like I can't check my email because you're asking me a question. I'm not going to remember what? I look like an idiot. By the way, you could edit that out, but it's just that perception of like, yeah, I'm paying. We're locked in, man. We're paying attention. You can't beat that. So when someone tries to compete, really, okay? This vendor, this vendor, this vendor, and this one, spend an hour and a half on the phone with my CEO or the decision maker. Like, how are you going to compete unless they're terrible? You win, right? So I think as cheesy as that, I mean, I always hated hearing human to human instead of B2B or B2C. I hated that, but it's true. It is like, and so the more human to human we get, the more it's going to cut through all that noise. And the noisy people are going to make more noise. And they're going to keep going down that path and they're going to make noisier and noisier things. And we're just going to make more and more human things, podcasts, communities, roundtables, partnerships. And that human is just going to, like hot knife on butter, cut through all that noise. So that's what I'm really excited about with the future.
It sounds like you're future proofing your agency, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
I have a good buddy that we did a forum retreat down in Miami. And this friend, shout out to Aaron White, he's an expert in AI, not like the kind on social going, I'm an expert. Here's how you prompt. He's building things, right? Shout out to Appy people. He's building agentic AI. He's doing the things. And he said, look, next 5 years are going to be amazing. After that, it gets weird. So like, prepare yourself. Think about things. Prepare your agency. And so, yeah, and he also said, hey, best thing you can do right now is gather an audience of people who trust you. Because at some point, you're not going to know human versus noise versus this versus that. But if you have a following of people who have heard your thought leadership and trust you to tell them what's what, that's going to make so much more sense when the time comes.
Let's switch gears a little bit here, Casey, and let's go back in time, a couple decades or something when you were a little Casey. Did you think you would ever be a founder of a business?
I was doing it without even realizing it for decades. And I just needed someone to point it out to me. No one actually pointed it out to me. So maybe that's my mission, later in life here is just to call it out for our young fellow entrepreneurs. Like I remember behind my house was undeveloped field. Now there's houses. Boo. But back then there wasn't. And no one ever went back there. So there were these giant raspberry bush weed things, right? Just giant. And we called it the Hidden Valley, kind of like Hidden Valley Ranch, but it was Hidden Valley raspberries, right? And so my brother and I would go back there and we would pick these massive raspberries and eat them. But sometimes we would also pick them and put them in little Ziploc bags that we got from my mom. And we put a little sticker on them that said $1 or whatever. And then we'd go down the street and ring people's doorbells and sell them raspberries. And they buy them or we'd eat them. But either way, it was fun. And, so even from an early age, I was somehow, I was doing that value trading thing, right? This might be valuable to someone else, whether it's doing magic show for the local kids or whatever the case may be. I was doing this value trade practice early on and I enjoyed it. I really did. I loved selling candy bars door to door and fundraising and all those things.
Cool. And then what was the driver to start Ringmaster? What was the big idea or the motivation behind starting Ringmaster?
Jeez, I was, doing this other agency behind all the tech, teaching other people to get behind the tech and I launched the pod. I needed thought leadership, right? I needed thought leadership I always found that with my agency, if we taught, we won. If we taught someone something, we won the deal. Like we just had to teach things and then we won. And so I was like, okay, I need to do thought leadership. But I would do a classic LinkedIn post that would be seen. I would write it back then. It'd be seen by either 12 people or 1,200 people, but you never knew the difference. You never knew why or how it was one or the other. And I didn't have time to do that all the time or really enjoy that. So I thought, how could I make content? So I just wanted to make a podcast for content's sake. And I did. And I sort of winged it because there were a bunch of audio nerds, but there were no podcast business audio nerds, aka Ringmaster, right? So we just tried stuff and experimented, and I started ugly, and I tried different things, and eventually I had these conversations. I remember one of them, it was kind of eye-opening. First of all, I made so many friends, and I got so much more connected. I was in this ecosystem. I was in the Salesforce ecosystem exclusively. And I didn't know anyone outside. I was like not learning from anyone outside. So this really helped me bust out of the bubble. And then what was really cool was then I was able to go ahead and start, connecting with people. But this one particular person at the end of the call, at the end of the recording, we had a great conversation. She was like, oh, by the way, we're migrating from Marketo to Pardot. I was like, wait a second. That's what we do. In fact, that's the only thing we do. We specialize in that. And she was like, well, no kidding. I've been looking for someone. I'm like, great. We got our teams together and they scoped out a giant deal. And there was no sales cycle. It was just, and it was good timing, right? So not all podcasts are great timing like that, but it just opened my eyes to like, hey, this is pretty cool. Podcast guests can be friends. Shout out to Daryl and Ethan and all sorts of homies out there. All my buddies that I created from just having podcast conversations, but also customers and partners and referral partners. So it really helped expand my ecosystem. So I fell in love with podcasting from that experience. And so when I had a chance to sell the agency and go all in, I just went all in on podcasts.
If you could go back to when you started the agency and give yourself some advice, would you change anything or what would you tell yourself?
I will say I did a lot of things better this time, right? And so even thinking about that, like, and you have to have grace with yourself too. You look back at like the younger you and you go, man, what a knucklehead. He didn't know much at all. Or that was ridiculous. Why did I do that? Right. So yeah, but I also didn't know any better. But looking back, what would I tell myself at the beginning of this agency or even the beginning of the last agency? Honestly, culture. With my last company, I took my finger off that pulse a little bit. I got advised, which I learned incorrectly. Hey, we're a big company, 30 plus people. You don't need to interview everyone, right? We'll just hire them. If you hired us, we'll hire them. And we weren't big enough that it was time to do that yet. And so I kind of, I was also looking at other things and whatnot. So I think one of my advice is like, hey, pay attention to the culture, defend it. You are the original defender of the culture, of making sure we have the right people in the right seats, but also people you want to work with and people that want to work with you. And so really pay attention to culture and like core values, like what's important, right? And don't accept anything that isn't in that value, and don't let that slip. And you can be really strict with it because that's going to drive so much. And when culture is humming, people it's like not about the salary, it's about the adventure they can join. But when your culture stinks, they're like, how much money can I get? Right. So I'd much rather have that former conversation than the latter one.
They say what, culture eats strategy for lunch or something like that?
100%. It does.
Yep.
It does. But if you have culture, then you go to strategy. Now you're getting like a Hobbit brunch and it's like all you can eat. It's like Golden Corral if you got both.
That's awesome, Casey. So what do you like to do outside of work?
We're just coming off of winter and I really tried to make winter my season. And so come winter, it's skiing and ski patrol. And then in the summer, it's hiking getting out there, getting out in the woods. Maybe it took recent events back in 2020 to really wake me up to like get outside. We're in a screen all the time, and so get outside and play. But also, ski patrol was an interesting invention. The idea of, yeah, I'd like to help people out when they get injured when they're skiing, and I thought it'd be cool to ski for free and get a cool red coat. Honestly, I wasn't thinking all heal the world type of thing, but man, there's nothing like when you know are coming up to help somebody who's injured, having probably the worst day in their recent recollection on a mountain, and they're not sure how they're going to get down. Things hurt, and you're like, "Hey, I got you. We're going to get you down." And you physically put your hands on them, right? We do a lot of virtual things, and so it's just a great reminder to me, like, get outside, help people out, do things, physical things. Even just pounding signs into the snow when it's the early morning and the cold weather, just like it reconnects you with that physical side of us where we're out there doing something manual so that we're not always constantly just doing digital things.
So what's the training like to become a ski patrol person?
You know what? It's a little hybrid. It's like online classes. There's a giant textbook. I'm holding up for those listening, I'm holding up my hands and it's like 9-foot wide book. Not really. It feels like it though. So it's like a real thick medical book, Outdoor Emergency Care, 9th edition. And there's just a lot of things, some was harkened back to being a Boy Scout, but there's just a lot of medical training that goes into it. But it's fun. And what I realized that I was in my element was when I showed up on Saturday, because they did a virtual class, but then every now and then you'd show up on a Saturday with a bunch of other people who were both nerds, like medical nerds, amateur ones, right? And cared about people enough to show up on a Saturday and learn how to stop bleeding on someone, right? Like, and I was like, oh, these are my people. And so, yeah, there's just a bit of hybrid training. And then once you graduate OEC, there's practical, it's really kind of fun. There's a written test, and then there's a practical test where you imagine coming across 9 different scenes, and you have to run through an entire process of scene safety and ensuring everything's safe, and then putting on your protection equipment and running through a certain checklist of things and assessing the patient and radioing in and running through initial patient assessment and then the advanced one, right? So there's a lot of different steps. We have to do that right with like 9 different scenarios. But I just found that so fun. And then once you pass that, you're like, I'm in, right? No. Now you get to your mountain, you've passed the sort of the coursework, and now you show them over the first season that you can do the stuff for real in the field, and you can do it on a mountain at an angle, not just in a classroom. And then at some point you earn your red jacket. You earn that ski patrol jacket. That was just a proud moment. Like, it was really cool. And it was kind of a funny scene though, because I was halfway out of snow pants and standing there in like long underwear and boots off in my socks and getting changed after a day of patrol. And the manager of the whole mountain comes in, the ski patrol director comes in, and they're like, Casey. And I'm like half naked. I'm like, hey, and they're like, here you go, man, congratulations. And I was like, thank you so much. It was an awesome moment to earn that.
That's awesome, Casey. Uh, I agree with you completely about the importance of getting outside. Like when I have to spend a day in a city doing some meetings with people, or I go to a conference that's held in downtown in some city and I spend like all day or 2 or 3 days in a city walking around on concrete and asphalt and no trees and no hills to hike up and down. It's just, I can't wait to get back to my suburban home where I can go for a hike
Yeah.
in the woods 10 minutes from my house. I mean, it makes all the world of difference getting out in nature, but doing the ski patrol, that just takes it to a whole nother level though.
Yeah. Contribution, helping other people. Right. So I probably should have known that, but it's something I learned, and I'm happy to admit that I didn't like, it is fun to help people, but when they're real, like it's all in relation to how much help they need. You're like, whoa, they really need a lot of help. Wow. That feels really good to be able to help them. And also it's really scary skiing someone down a mountain in a toboggan behind you. Right. And they're wrapped up like a burrito. I remember the first time I skied someone down, thankfully it was like a teenager, and they were pretty light, right? And I think I was more nervous for them than they were. And so every now and then you stop and you turn around and you go, "Hey, you good? You good? We're almost there." And this teenager was like, "Yeah, are we there yet?" And I'm like, "We'll be there soon. I just want to make sure you're cool." And then, ski them down to the bottom. But yeah, it's an adventure. And think of your hardest, worst trail you've been on, and then think, now how do I maneuver this like really heavy toboggan behind me and make that happen? So it just little complexity, a little challenge, always fun for me.
Good for you, Casey. That's awesome. So, we covered a lot of ground today. There are
Yeah.
people in the audience that want to connect with you to have a deeper conversation. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah. I'll skip all the hubbub. Just shoot me an email, Casey@ringmaster.com. Hey, like I've heard it compared to like agencies is waking up every morning and chewing on broken glass. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's like chewing on candy, and you're not necessarily sure which day is which until you're in it. But I'd love to connect with any other agency owners out there, and let's just share things. If we're local, break some bread and share some experiences. But it could be a lonely road, it could be a hard road. So happy to connect with anybody, and obviously answer any questions about podcasts. I think it's a no brainer to have a podcast for every marketing agency. And if I can give you tips, if you want to do it yourself, you don't necessarily need to hire us for it or whatnot. But happy to help, and anything I can do to help. So Ringmaster.com is the website. Casey@Ringmaster is the email. You can check out some of the shows we've created over on that thing. And obviously LinkedIn's great too. Happy to, share networks and that kind of thing.
Well, listeners, as you can tell, Casey's really into helping people and he knows a lot about what he's doing. So I'd encourage you to reach out and talk to him. He's a great guy. I really appreciate you coming on the show, Casey, and talking about the different ways to have, build direct relationships with your marketplace through podcasts, through community, through partnerships and different tactics. You can do that, how you've, evolved your approach to finance over the years, and all the help you're giving out as a ski patroller. So really thank you so much for spending time with me today and our audience.
Man, thank you. Like, really cool. Like I said, you know, we've known each other for a bit, but to connect with you on a pod is surreal and fun. And thank you for listening. Sometimes I feel like I'm just talking crazy things, so it's great to chat with someone I know who's like, no, this is actually really interesting, and I appreciate it, man. So I also thank you for doing this. Like, I feel like agency owners, we got to stick together. I used to think like, I wanted all the business, and I didn't want to talk to anyone in marketing because we're competing with each other. But man, there's so many fish out there, and we just need to, we need a little club of fishermen and women over here. We should stick together.
Absolutely. For those listening, if you learned something today or you laughed at something, tell somebody about this podcast. Let's get good information into other people's hands, give some thought leadership, and help out fellow agency owners. So thanks again, Casey. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
This has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We'll see you next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, please visit marketingagencypowerhour.com. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, providing marketing agencies with bookkeeping, accounting, and finance support. With SmartBooks, you gain the clarity and confidence to make your agency a success. Until next time.